And
Hey, Roger, do you for questions, do you want them to interrupt you, or do you want me or some of us read the questions to you, or do you want to hold to the end?
Maybe hold them to the end just so we get through.
Got it. All right.
yeah, so everybody just know that just at the end we're gonna have the Q&A, and for the purposes of this recording, let me do a brief introduction. Again, this is me, Rod. I'm here with Marco, and we're happy to have you here. This is one of many special events that we're going to do, and today we have the privilege of having Roger Grimes. Roger is very well known, and I mean, I cannot. It's a very long resume, but it's spectacular, and we're all very excited and happy and thankful to have him in our group and speak today. And I'm sure he's got a lot of great stuff to talk about. So without further ado, I'm going to give the floor to Roger Grimes.
Cool. Let me try to share my screen.
We set you as a presenter. And there you go.
Oh. It took it away from, I was just getting ready to click on it and it took it away. Hold on one sec. Here we go. Yes. Okay. See my slides? Okay. So again, if you don't know me, I'm Roger Grimes. I've been doing computer security for 34 years, earned all these gray hairs. I've done a lot of things in life, including I've written 12 books and over now 1,100 magazine articles on computer security. I've been everything from a PC repair technician, network manager, VP of IT. Probably my favorite job was being a penetration tester. I love being a hacker. That's my favorite job of all. I've been a penetration tester over 20 years. Every place I was hired to hack into, I broke into in an hour or less, except for one place that took me 3 to 5 hours because it was the second time I was there. But on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm actually not that great of a hacker. I'm average. I'm a 5, a 6, you know, with 10s being the greatest. You know, I'm okay, but I'm not great. But I'm really good at defending against hacking. That's kind of my specialty. There's some of my books. The talk today, Hacking MFA, it actually, when I started giving this talk, it was because Kevin Mitnick, he's the chief hacking officer at my company, KnowBe4. He's also this, probably one of the most infamous hackers in the world. Back in the 80s, he was a mischievous hacker and phreaker and doing phone phreaking and stuff like that. And he got caught and arrested in the late 1980s, spent a couple of years in jail, came out, and he's been a good guy ever since. And I was very dubious of that. Matter of fact, people back in the day were like saying, free Kevin, free Kevin. I was like, no, put his ass in jail because I am not for illegal hacking. But he actually is a good guy. He he realized that he can make a better living being a penetration tester and white hat hacker, and he always says he gets the same thrill hacking as a white hat hacker as he did when he was a malicious hacker. He said, except for there's more paperwork now. But when I was at KnowBe4 early on, Kevin demonstrated a way to hack MFA that I'm going to show you in about 10 minutes. And when that was shown, we literally got like 1,000 media inquiries that wanted to know all about it, how it was done. And they asked me, Kevin couldn't answer all the questions, could I pick them up? Well, I've been hacking MFA at that time for 25, 30 years. I've been on dozens of projects, MFA projects, dozens of hacking MFA projects. I've hacked just about every type of MFA there is. And so I was glad to answer those questions, but I was shocked that so many people were surprised that you could hack MFA, because MFA has been hacked since the day MFA was released. And if the entire world went to MFA, it wouldn't stop hackers and malware. I mean, because they've been hacking around MFA for decades. So I ended up writing, I did a webinar, and then in my 34 career, this webinar that I'm showing you right now today is that webinar. It is the most popular webinar I've ever taught in my 30 plus years. I taught it at Black Hat, I taught it at RSA. And it was to standing room only crowds, people waiting out in the hallway. I wrote a white paper, then an ebook, and then Wiley, who I've done a lot of books with, said, hey, would you write a book on? And I did. And the book has like 50 plus ways to hack MFA. I work for KnowBe4 right now. We're the world's largest security awareness training vendor. So, you know, we help companies teach their employees how not to get phished or socially engineered. But, you know, again, this whole thing's about MFA, or as much as I can cover. I'll probably cover somewhere between 12 to 18 ways to hack MFA over the next hour. And to kind of get into what, you know, multi-factor authentication is, you're authenticating, you have these different types of authentication factors. They're traditionally known as three. Something you know, something you have, something you are. Something you know is like your password or your PIN, or maybe you're connecting dots on a screen to log in somewhere. Something you have, that would be like a USB token, smart card, something like that. Something you are typically is biometrics, and those biometrics can be different fingerprints are probably the most common one, probably handprint geometry. The logging into time clocks is pretty popular. Retina scans are up there. I even once was on a US Army project, this is probably in the 90s, on trying to identify people by the way they smelled. And it was interesting. We could identify different people based upon how they smelled, but then we found that if they drank alcohol or ate garlic, it overrode the sensors. You know, everybody that drinks and eats garlic apparently smells a lot alike, so that didn't work out as being super accurate. But I've been around MFA for decades. I've been hacking MFA and you know, for a long time. But besides those three factors today, those traditional three factors, there's other factors we have today called contextual and behavioral, or your location. Like, you know, are you logging in from a device that's previously been logged in before? Is it a device that you registered? Are you coming from a place that you normally log in from? Are you doing the things you normally do? Or even behavioral analytics. There's a whole kind of biometrics field called keystroke dynamics. It actually measures how long it takes you putting your password in it. It measures each keystroke, each downstroke and upstroke, and together they can fairly accurately determine, is it you typing in your password or not. Matter of fact, when I worked at Microsoft for Hotmail and whatever they're calling it these days, we had over 100 factors that we looked at why someone was logging in to determine whether or not they were the person they said they were. You know, were they coming in with the same browser or the same combination of browser and, you know, operating system and things like that. And if somebody tried to log in from, let's say, Texas, and an hour later they're logging in from China, we went, that's probably unlikely. So you can really have lots of different factors out there. There's three, you know, there's one factor, two factor, three factor, but really you'll hear about 7-factor solutions and things like that. So single factor is like, you know, that's traditionally like a login name and password, or the password is the secret you type in, but it could be like a lot of FIDO keys. You just plug them into the USB slot and they're single factor, meaning that having possession of the FIDO key is enough to have your identity. Sometimes maybe they make you push a button and they call that 2-factor, but I still think that's kind of 1-factor. But you can, you know, so you have 2-factor, multi-factor. Multi-factor could be 2-factor or more. And again, many times you hear about these 5 and 7 factors. Usually it's just that they're using contextual behavioral things in it, like your device is a factor. What device are you coming from, the same cell phone or the same laptop? And you know, when you have all these different factors, the idea is that as you have more factors, you want them to be different factors. You know, you don't want it to be 2 of the same factor. You don't want it to be 2 things, you know, like if they're like, put in the password and put in a PIN. Well, those are 2 things that a phishing person, you know, a scammer could trick you out of. But if you have to provide a PIN or a password and a dongle or a FIDO key, you know, it's tougher for the attacker to learn both or get access to both. So all things considered equal, you want to have different types of factors when you're doing multi-factor authentication. Also, I'm going to show you a lot of ways you can hack MFA, but just know that MFA is a good thing, and we all should try to use MFA when we can. Even though it's easy to hack and easy to get around in a lot of cases, we should strive to use it where we can. Unfortunately, MFA doesn't work. Well, that kind of went out here. Let's see what happened. Do y'all still see my screen?
No.
No.
No, it got unshared for some reason. Let me see what's going on. I did something wrong. Computers will drive you nuts. Here we go again. but MFA doesn't work with even 2% of the world's websites and services. So we're probably all for the next 5 or 10 years going to have to have a combination of passwords and MFA. And I don't know if you're like me, I have to use multiple MFAs. Most of us probably do. You may have one for work, you may have one for your bank, you may have another one when you go to some other website, but that's kind of the reality of today, is that we're all have a combination of passwords and multiple MFAs. But MFA is a good thing. So some people have to see this talk like, I'm never using MFA, it's too easy to hack. It's a good thing, and it typically, MFA significantly decreases some forms of hacking, and for that alone it should be used. It just isn't unhackable. And I've met a lot of people that when they use MFA, they think like, I'm a lot harder to hack. But in 90% of the cases, I can send you a phishing email, and if I get you to click on the link, I can get around your MFA. And I'll show you one of those ways in just a minute. So that's really what I'm trying to teach here, is that everything's hackable, and MFA isn't any different. Although to understand how you can do some of the hacking, there's at least three different components of authentication. You have your identity, or your identifier, which is like your login ID. So it could be a NetBIOS name, it could be your Windows login, it could be an LDAP login, it could be your email address, it could be a DNS address, it could be it could be your digital certificate. But in any authentication system, it has to have some type of namespace, LDAP, DNS, Active Directory. And then your account has to be linked to a unique identity within that namespace. You can't have no two people can have the same login name, let's say like within the same Active Directory forest. And then you type in or somehow provide your identity, and then you have to prove that you have ownership of that identity by providing one or more factors of authentication. And if you successfully provide those, then you get authenticated. And then almost always you're going to be given an access control token, which is kind of a license that says this person has successfully authenticated. And then behind the scenes, whenever your identity goes to access something, instead of having to relog into that system, it uses this access control token. That access control token has your identity in it. It may have, in Windows, your access control token has like your groups and your privileges and things like that. And then when you go to access a protected object, that access control token is evaluated by the security manager to see, are you allowed to access this protected resource? And if you are, with what permissions or privileges. On a website, that access control token is almost always a cookie. It's just a text-based cookie that's put into your browser that has some type of identity identifier, global unique identity identifier that's tracked to your account. But this is an important point. If I've lost you, if you're going to sleep already, pay attention here, because 99% of IT security people don't know this small point. And that is, no matter how you log on in, whether it's username and password, smart card, FIDO key, fingerprint scanner, the access control token that you get after you successfully log on in looks the same for everyone. I don't know what I thought years ago. I thought years ago, like if I used a fingerprint scanner before I understood this concept, I thought my fingerprint was somehow being sent around the network. And when I was logging into a database or opening a document, somehow, Active Directory was, was using my fingerprint. Like, oh yeah, that's Roger's fingerprint. But that's not what happens. If you log in with a fingerprint or a password, let's say in your laptop, you then get a Kerberos ticket or token or NTLM token, and it looks identical whether or not you logged in with a username and password or you used a fingerprint or a smart card or a FIDO key. The access control token that you're given, like when you log into a website, no matter how you logged into that website, you get a text-based cookie after you're through. And if an attacker can grab that access control token, they can steal your identity for that session or for that software or for that network. And one of the most common ways this is done is something called network session hijacking. It's been around for decades and decades. The first time I saw it occur was in the late 1980s. I first wrote about it in 1989. I wrote a lot about it in 1991. Millions of people have been hacked because of network session hijacking. And essentially what goes on with this is, again, the hacker has to trick the victim into some sort of man-in-the-middle attack where the attacker can see everything that's sent between the client to the server and then everything from the server to the client. So they typically trick the victim to going to a man-in-the-middle website, proxy website, and then no matter how the victim logs on in, whether it's password or two-factor, the attacker just waits for the access control token to be granted by the server. The attacker steals that token and then takes over the session. And that's what I'm going to show you in just a minute. But again, this is the most common way that it's done. It's been done for decades, is that a bad guy's got to convince a victim to visit a rogue website of some sort. They prompt the victim to put in their credentials, MFA or otherwise. The victim puts it in. The bad guy's software actually is capturing all that and proxies it to the server, and anything the server wants. Like if the server's like, you need to put in your MFA credentials, it proxies that back to the user. The user doesn't know that it's occurring. The server doesn't know that it's occurring. But then finally, when the victim logs on in successfully and the server sends the access control token, the attacker steals that token, takes over that session, usually changes the password and kicks the real victim out. So I'm going to get ready to show you a video that Kevin, this is the video that Kevin Mendick did a couple of years ago that made so many people were shocked. They couldn't believe how easy it was. And they wanted to know if it was on LinkedIn, whether Microsoft and LinkedIn were going to fix it. And they were all upset when I told them no, they weren't going to fix it, weren't going to be able to fix it because it's just not the way that sort of MFA worked. It wasn't a bug. It's just a way that you can get around that type of MFA, and there was no bug to fix. It was as designed. So I'm going to show you that video here. So I'm going to unshare this. Let me get my, I'm going to stop sharing this and share something else. Let's see, stop sharing, stand by, then I'm going to share the video, and then we'll come back. Other applications, is it here? Maybe I have to, oh, there it is. Okay. Share this. Okay, and then I should be able to play. Let me know if you can see this video and hear Kevin talking. Can y'all hear that or see it?
Yes.
Okay.
And if you take a look at the second email here, I'll go ahead and open it. It appears to be an email from LinkedIn. And ordinarily, when somebody wants to join your network on LinkedIn, LinkedIn will actually send an email to your email address notifying you of that. If you're interested, you can go ahead and click interested, log into your LinkedIn account, and authorize that person to actually become a connection. So we take a look here, we have an email from LinkedIn that says, Kevin, I've read about your adventures and Ghosts in the Wires and so on, and this person wants to join my network. But this is actually a phishing attack. If we take a look here at where the email was originating from, it's not at linkedin.com, it's at this domain called llnkp.com, which people might overlook. So let's go ahead and pretend that we're the victim here and go ahead and click on interested. And what that is going to do, it's going to redirect us to the LinkedIn website to go ahead and log in. But let's move this over. Right. Let that load. If you take a look over here, we have a blank white page, which is going to become very important in a moment. And this is the attacker terminal section. So let's go ahead and bring back virtual machine that's now connected to LinkedIn to authenticate, because we, again, clicked on interested in email. So we'll go ahead and put in the username, Johnny Boy, and picnic.com. Now we're going to go ahead and put in our secret password. And we're going to go ahead and click sign in. When we click sign in, it's not going to allow us to log in. What LinkedIn is going to do is request our two-factor authentication code that LinkedIn is going to actually send to my mobile phone. And in a moment, you should hear a sound that the text message was received on my mobile phone. So let's go ahead and click sign in. And here we go. It's telling us that two-step authentication. is enabled. We just heard a message come into my mobile device. We're going to uncheck this box that says recognize this device in the future. And I'm going to open my mobile device to take a look and see what the text message is, or what the code is, right? So the code here is 421 476. We're going to go ahead and click verify. And when we do so, it's going to log us into my LinkedIn account. So now we're logged into the LinkedIn account. Well, let's take a look at the attacker session over here on the left. So we're going to scoot this over to the right. And over here, what we have is what we're able to intercept. So we're able to intercept the email address, which is johnnyboy@security.com. We're also able to intercept the password of the account, which is before rocks. And over here, this is not the actual 6-digit code that was intercepted because you can't really use the 6-digit code again, the second factor. But what we're able to do is intercept the session cookie. And if you're able to steal the session cookie, or rather the attacker is able to do so, you don't even need your password or second factor code. They can simply load the session key into a browser and they actually become you. So let me show you how this works. We're going to highlight the cookie. We're going to copy it to the clipboard. And then we're simply going to open up Chrome in incognito. Incognito mode just means with privacy. So now we're going to go to the real LinkedIn website. We go here. Obviously, we're not authenticated. Now it's wants us to log in with our credentials, but we don't have to do so. We're going to go ahead and go into developer. We're going to go into the console. And what we're going to paste through the console is the session cookie that we stole from the victim. To myself, by the way. I'm going to close the session. And all I simply have to do is log in to the victim's account with their session cookie, simply hit refresh now. I hit refresh, and here we are. We're logged in, or rather hacked, my own account.
So pretty wild, huh? I don't think anyone that's seen something like this for the first time doesn't fail to be a little impressed with it. And when this first came out, Kevin was, again, inundated. People know, well, is Microsoft going to fix this? And, people asked, were we going to report it as a new CVE, common vulnerability exploit? We're like, no, it's the opposite of new. It's been done this way for 30 years. Kevin used a hacker tool called Evil Jinx that it can set up as a bunch of different man-in-the-middle proxies. And it's been around for 10 or 12 years. It's been hacking around MFA for 7, 8 years. And there are literally dozens, if not hundreds of ways to do this. Even if you're older like me, there used to be a browser, if you used to, probably about 10 years ago, Firefox was a really popular browser, and some guy came out with something called Fire Sheet. And you could just add this add-in to your Firefox browser, push a button, and capture everybody's cookies. You could go into a coffee shop and then just snag everybody's cookie, and that's before everything was HTTPS encrypted. But again, this type of attack works against probably 90% of MFA. There's some types of MFA like FIDO2 that it won't work against because there's a pre-registration of the device and a pre-registration of the website. But most of your time-based one-time passwords and Google Authenticator and Microsoft Authenticator and LinkedIn and all that stuff, they're all subject to this sort of attack. It happens in the real world all the time. Here's a news story where the poor cryptocurrency people, they're hacked all the time. But this guy got tricked into going to a fake Binance website. Binance is like Coinbase. It allows you to buy and sell and trade cryptocurrencies. But he got tricked into going to a fake Binance website, and it stole his login credentials, including his 2FA code that was sent to him by Google Authenticator. So he thought he was protected because he was using multi-factor authentication with Google Authenticator, but it didn't help him. This has been going on for decades. Here's some other news stories where Iranian phishers bypass 2FA protections offered by Yahoo Mail and Gmail. It says here, the victims would enter passwords into a fake Gmail or Yahoo security page, and the attackers almost simultaneously enter the credentials into the real login page. In the event that the targets, the victims' accounts were protected by 2FA, the attackers would redirect the targets to a new page that requested the one-time password and would steal it with a man-in-the-middle attack. So this has been done all the time. Another popular way is that was called man-in-the-middle. This I just call man in the endpoint, but the idea is that if your device gets compromised by hackers or malware, the device that you're using, the hacker or the malware can do anything that you can do. So if they kind of don't care how you authenticate, they just wait till you authenticate and then they take over your computer, or they, most of the time they'll start a second hidden browser session. And Windows and Linux and Macs, you can actually start a second desktop session that the current logged in user can't see, but it will still use the same cookies and same MFA. So they can insert backdoors and keyloggers. They can steal your network access control token. They can invalidate your protection altogether. But a really popular one that's been around since the 80s, the late 80s, is called Bancos Trojans, which means banking Trojan, in either Portuguese or Spanish. But the reason why these are called Bancos Trojans is when they first appeared in the 80s, they were mostly happening in Brazil and South America, because Brazil and South America had banks, but they didn't have a lot of ATMs. So they're the first cultures to go online, with e-banks a whole lot. But what these banking Trojans do, and they're still around today, they've stolen billions of dollars a year, is they infect your computer like any malware. Any malware that, worm, virus, Trojan, or whatever gets into your system. So social engineering, unpatched software, whatever. They infect your system, and then they monitor where your browser goes on the internet. So they look at the URL. Every time you type in something, it's constantly checking the URL. And then when you go to your bank, if it's one of the, 200 banks they're looking for, they kind of perk up. They wait for you to log on in. They don't care how you log on in, whether you use MFA or not. But as soon as you've successfully logged in the background, they open a second hidden browser session and steal all your money. So you think you're just checking your bank balance, or you're transferring, $100 to your kid or something like that. But all of a sudden, in seconds, you're robbed. All your money is gone. And they've been around forever. Here's a news story from 2019. Said 11 members of it was called the Gaznem malware network. They used a stealthy banking Trojan to steal $100 million, and that's just what the law enforcement knows about, from 41,000 victims. There are hundreds of these groups in the world that are constantly stealing billions of dollars every year, called banking Trojans. They even they've moved on to the mobile platforms. I'm not going to play this video here, but this is a video where it's kind of neat. The Trojan would pretend to be an Android battery optimization app. And if people downloaded it to make their Android last longer before it ran out of the batteries, it would wait till it would do nothing until the user at some point in time logged into PayPal. And when they logged into PayPal, it would all of a sudden kick off a bunch of keystrokes. So the user logs into PayPal, and if you look in that video, you can see the keystrokes happening in about a second or two. But by the time the person's like, what the heck is going on there? They're back to the normal PayPal screen, and they don't realize that their money just got stolen. Today, a lot of mobile phone malware, like EventBot, is a very popular one. All it is a mobile banking Trojan that steals money. EventBot targets users of over 200 different financial institutions like PayPal, Barclays, Capital One, what do you have in your wallet? HSBC and Coinbase and all that sort of stuff. And again, if you look down here in the left-hand corner, it said not only can it grab passwords from more than 200 financial applications, but it intercepts the two-factor authentication codes as well. EventBot was posing as a flash update. So the user would go to a website they go to all the time. It's like, oh, you need a flash update. And if they installed that, it would install this EventBot Trojan and steal their information. It can even read their SMS messages if it's in case it's SMS-based MFA. So very common. Speaking of that, any SMS, short messaging service based, the most common MFA on the internet today is probably SMS based. We're all used to getting those codes from our vendors. Here's a selection of codes I'm getting from my Marriott, from Facebook, from Office 365, and the bottom left, Bank of America. They send you these codes that you have to type into your browser or whatever. What's amazing about these things is that your phone, SMS, the most authentication it can ever have is that it's tied to a phone number. And if you don't recognize that phone number, you don't really know who that is. So I could send you a message claiming to be Bill Gates, and you wouldn't know whether or not it's Bill Gates. But there's a lot of different ways to hack SMS-based MFA. One of the most common ways is something called SIM swap. SIM stands for Subscriber Identity Module. Used to be all the cell phones came with this little micro SD chip, and if you're older like me, that chip would be behind your battery in your phone, and if you want to remove it, you had to remove your battery and you get to that chip. And then they started making a little SIM storage slot on the phone. If you had to knock it out, you had to get a paper clip. These days, most of the time, they don't have a separate micro SD card. It's just a virtual area on your phone. But that SIM subscriber identity module, that it's just memory storage area that stores a bunch of different information that makes your phone and assigns your phone number to that phone. That subscriber identity module has a global unique identifier for your phone, so no matter where it goes in the world, it can be tracked and used, and phone number sent to it. It's got your phone number, it's got your name. And what hackers found out is that if they could get your SIM information sent to their cell phone, that their cell phone became your phone. So that all that happens when they get that information sent is your cell phone stops working, and most people don't realize that it's occurred because all it is that it's silent. All of a sudden, they're not getting messages, they're not getting phone calls. If they look, maybe they'll see an out-of-network message, and they're like, why is my phone out of message? And a lot of people probably think, oh, I must be in a bad area, and it probably takes some hours to figure out what's going on. They call their cell phone company, eventually using somebody else's phone, and the cell phone company's like, oh, Mr. Grimes, you transferred your SIM information to your new phone. You're like, what new phone? And it's because you've been SIM swapped attacked. A lot of times, the hackers involved with this will pre-text you, and they'll scam you. They either call you or email you claiming to be your cell phone company, get your login name and or password out. Then they'll call your cell phone company later on, claim to be you, that you've got a new cell phone because your cell phone got destroyed, but they've fished out of you enough information that they can log in, they can convince the cell phone company that they are you and get that information, the SIM information swapped to the new cell phone. Or they actually it's pretty common for them to have insiders that they'll pay 50 or 75 bucks. They'll call them and go, hey, I need you to do a SIM swap on this number. And the person inside the company just does it. It happens all the time. I don't know how often, hundreds, thousands of times a day. It's abused so badly, the US government in 2017, so 4 years ago, and something called the NIST, National Institute Standards of Technology Digital Identity Guidelines. It's NIST Special Publication 800-63. It's the US government's proclamation on what people should use for computer authentication. They said don't use SMS-based MFA. It can be faked, it can be stolen, it can be misdirected, and it's so weak. Because remember, at most, SMS is being tracked to a phone number, and I can get your phone number moved to any phone. It's really not that secure. And it's been used to steal hundreds of millions of dollars. That top one there, the smartphone crypto hack, one cryptocurrency guy lost $24 million. I think he sued AT&T for $121 million. I need to look up and see if they settled that out of court or not. But even like Reddit's admin people for Reddit, love Reddit, ask me anything. Reddit's guys, their admins used SMS-based MFA, but one of them got SIM swap attacked, and then he lost that, he got SIM swap attacked, and then the bad guys logged in as admin, reset everybody else's account, installed malware, stole customer information. It's a big deal. SIM swapping attacks, even if you look at the bottom left, this advertisement here, it says, California authorities say a 20-year-old college student hijacked more than 40 phone numbers and stole $5 million, right? Teenagers or near teenagers selling this sort of stuff. So I tell people, don't use SMS-based applications, MFA applications, if you can avoid it. Here's the problem. It is the most popular type of MFA on the internet today, and you usually don't have a choice whether or not you're going to use it. The company or the vendor or the software product that you're dealing with is like, hey, we're sending you an SMS-based, MFA message, and you don't get to choose whether you use it or not. Or even if you decide not to use it, somebody else, the attacker, could fake being you, put your account in account recovery mode, and have that sent to you. As a matter of fact, this is called SMS rogue recovery, where all the attacker has to do is have your email address and phone number to some type of to an email account or login account that can be in recovery mode and send an SMS message. And they can fake being that person. Like in this example here, the attacker fakes from being from Google Security. Like, we're from Google Security. We have detected a rogue sign in to your good guy Gmail account. In order to determine a legitimate login, we're going to send a verification code to your previously registered phone number from another Google support number. Please retype the sent verification code in response to this message, or your account will be permanently locked. Got to threaten people, let them know their account's going away forever. Then the attacker just tries to log in, goes to Gmail, tries to log in using your email address, tells Gmail, oh, I forgot my password. Gmail's nice. It will go, hey, you want to try your last password? And if you say no, I want to try another way, it will ask you, which of the 5 ways do you want to try? One of the ways that you can recover your account is, so even if you didn't want to use SMS-based recovery, the hacker can use. You cannot turn that off as a method of recovery. It's just one of the 5 that Google allows, and then they send you a code. And if you don't know, this is a real Google verification code. If you're the victim and you type this in response, the attacker takes that in, uses that for account recovery, and your account is no longer your account. This happens, again, probably thousands of times a day. Just know, phones in general are really poor authenticators. I can make my phone call your phone and use a fake phone number appearing to be anybody else's phone number. I can claim to be anybody. A lot of scams today, like, hi, Mr. Grimes, we're from your bank. Did you buy 2 plane tickets from Dallas, Texas to Nigeria? Well, Mr. Grimes, we didn't think you did. We want to let you know we stopped those charges, but we see there's $50,000 of other charges over the last 2 days, and we just need to find out which ones are your charges. And then the victim or whatever is panicking. They said, don't worry, Mr. Grimes, you're a valuable customer. We're going to protect you. We need to know your login name and password. Okay, thank you. And now we're going to send you a code, and we need you to tell us the code so you can prove you are who you say you are. And then they just reset the person's account. The person tells them the code over the phone, and it's game over. This happens again hundreds to thousands of times a day. They claim to be from your bank or your hotel company or your airline company, and you can't trust who somebody is on the phone if you don't recognize their voice. And these days with deep fakes, you never know. But this is really this particular news story here was this a lawyer that protected hackers, or he represents hackers, trying to stop hackers from going to jail. And he got scammed to the point where he actually gave the code, and it was only after he gave the code, and he actually was lucky enough, he was logged into his email, his banking account at the same time, and he didn't see any fake transactions before he gave his code, but from the moment that he gave his code, he started to see fraudulent transactions happen. So he figured out what was going on there. But this is really, you got to watch out for it. Be worried, and you can't trust messages on Instagram or PayPal or whatever where they're going, hey, we think someone's trying to log into your account, sign in here. You just can't trust these sort of fake alerts or people saying that they are who they are. So defenses are, be aware of rogue recovery messages. Recognize that if someone sends you a PIN, you almost never type it back in response to the message. You almost always put it into a browser in another chain. We call it out of a channel attack, or out of channel, a second channel. But avoid using SMS-based MFA whenever you can, if you can, because it just can't be trusted. Out of all the types of MFA that are out there, MSS-based ones are probably among the easiest ones to hack. And let me say, the telephone companies understand about these SIM swapping attacks, because SIM swapping has been going on for 20 years. And so the telephone companies train their technical support people not to do the SIM swap attacks, unless they're criminal and being paid to do it. But the hackers will call up these tech support people at AT&T and Verizon and T-Mobile and try to trick them into transferring that SIM information. Well, the telephone companies tell the technicians, the tech support people, follow this script. And if you always follow this script, you'll never get tricked, and you'll protect yourself and protect your customers and that sort of stuff. But any tech support person can be socially engineered by a really good social engineer. They'll call up, they'll claim to be the customer, that there's some big stressful event going on, and then get them to do something for them. Again, I don't have time to play this clip either, but I'm going to give you all my slides when I'm through, so you can go look at these links. But this particular YouTube video is a great one to watch, because a reporter went to, it wasn't Black Hat, it was DEF CON. He went to DEF CON and he talked to a female social engineer, and he said, hey, I've been having a lot of hacking on my cell phone lately. So I told my cell phone company, we created this new PIN number that they're not allowed to do a SIM swap or do anything unless they know this secret PIN number. I want to see if you can socially engineer my telephone company into giving you control of my phone account. So he gave her, she told him the name of the cell phone company, which I think was AT&T, and his phone number. And from that, he said, I want to see if you can socially engineer them out of my information. She did it in 5 minutes. She downloaded 2 videos of babies crying, and then she pretended to be a female with sick, hungry, starving babies. So the babies are crying in the background. She calls, AT&T tech support. She claims to be the wife of the guy that she was supposed to transfer their phones. They're moving, and she was supposed to transfer the phones, and she was late in doing it, and she's got the babies crying. She's like, I'm sorry, I got 2 babies sick, and they're crying. She's like, yes, honey, I'm doing it. So she acts like she's being browbeat by the husband because she's not doing it. So the does the tech support person help her out? Absolutely. She knows nothing. The tech support person asks her the email account of the login names that he uses. She just takes guesses. The tech support person says, no, that's not it. That's not it. How about this one? Does this one sound familiar? She's like, oh yeah, that's his old email account that he used to use. She goes, do you know the password? She's like, no, I can't remember. Honey, I'm trying to get it done. I promise I'm trying to get it done. And the tech support person at AT&T just not only gives her the email account and password and lets her take control of the account, but the social engineer then says, oh, my daughter is going to college, moved into a dorm today. Can I get her a phone charged to my account? Oh, I can, thank you very much. And you can just see the reporter going, he just can't believe how easy it was to social engineer tech support, but that's the way it is. Another type of hack, these are pretty, I don't want to say super common attacks. Well, they're not uncommon, but they're not super common. But a lot of us have these one-time based password tokens. It used to be back when I first started in computers, the only MFA that was out there was these RSA secure ID keys. And they have this code, it changes every minute. You got to type in the code. These days, a lot of us, probably the most common MFA that isn't SMS based is probably Google Authenticator. Every minute you get this 6-digit code and you only get a minute to use it. All of us that use these sort of time-based one-time password things, we all know the stress of trying to type in this 6-digit code before it expires and we have to type in another one. But the way that they work, all of them, is that when they're set up, something generates what's called a shared seed value, just a randomly generated number. And that number has to be stored on the device or the software instance that's generating the seed number or the changing number. So that seed value is randomly generated. It's stored in the authentication database. It's stored on the device or in the software. Then what's usually in a database is a global unique identifier. It's either tied to a global unique identifier or the person's email address or something. It's usually tied uniquely to that instance. And then there's an algorithm. So they take the seed value plus the global unique identifier of the device or software instance. And then there's an algorithm that then adds the current time. And that time will generate this 6-digit code that's not supposed to repeat anytime soon. It's only good for a minute. But the problem is that if someone gets a hold of that seed value database, because that shared secret has to be in, at least those shared secrets have to be not only in that device, but also have to be in the authentication database. And in the case of RSA secure IDs, that shared secret value is going to be at the RSA company, or will be at your company, like on a separate server next to your web server. And attackers will find those databases. And if they find the databases that have the seed value and the global unique identifier for the device or software instance, they can create additional unauthorized instances of those devices. And I used to use a program called Cain-Enable back in the early 90s. You still download Cain-Enable, although I say be careful. It has been updated in like 10 years, and it could have a Trojan in it these days. But a lot of people used to use Cain-Enable, and it had an RSA Secure ID token generator. So you had to have the serial number, which is on the back of anybody's RSA key, and then you had to have that seed value. They called it a key, but it was just a seed value. And if you put that in there, you could then create virtual instances of that RSA Secure ID. And this was actually done in a real world attack. Chinese advanced persistent threat broke into RSA. They broke into RSA using social engineering. They sent emails to a bunch of employees that had Microsoft Word and Excel documents that had macros in them. And I was at Microsoft at the time. And it's funny, the employees, in order for the employees to be compromised, they had to say, run this malicious code, run this. They got 3 prompts that said, be careful, this could be malicious. Are you sure you want to run it? And they did. But then the Chinese advanced persistent threat hackers broke into RSA. They stole everybody's RSA seed value databases, including Lockheed Martin. They then generated additional instances of Lockheed Martin's RSA Secure IDs, broke into Lockheed Martin, stole some military secrets. So it happens in real life. Happens more with Google Authenticator, though. Google Authenticator, if you used that before, usually you'll be sent this QR code, quick response code. That QR code really is just an 80-bit number. It's just the seed value. And if anybody can get, the wild thing is that code never expires. If any hacker ever comes across your QR code, they can set up an instance of your Google Authenticator, and it will never expire, and create a second, a second instance of it. Here's a news story, or here's where somebody was posting on Reddit. He had a bunch of cryptocurrency stolen. This guy. He said, he goes, I'm now 95% certain as to how the 2FA was bypassed. When I set up Google Authenticator for 2FA, I left a copy of the key in my email. Anybody reading this should probably be shaking their head. The moral of the story is, when you're signing up for 2FA, destroy the key that was used. I know a lot of people that take pictures of that key to save for safekeeping in case they have to set it up again. I know a lot of people that keep it in an email. I know a lot of people that delete it, but they don't delete their trash can ever, so it's really still in there. Hackers look for these Google Authenticator QR codes, and if they find them, they create a second instance, and it's game over because they can now pretend to be you. And again, Google Authenticator uses an 80-bit secret key. U.S. government says that any one-time password device should use a minimum of 128-bit key because 80 bits is too weak and can be hacked. But that's kind of beside the point. But the idea is, remember, anytime someone's trying to crack a one-time password device, they have to know the seed value. In this case, it's the QR, the 80-bit value that's in the QR code. They've got to know the instance, and it's typically tied to someone's email address, usually a Gmail address, plus an application or a login of some sort. And then they have to know the Google Authenticator algorithm. Well, it turns out Google Authenticator was a public algorithm. It started out, Google Authenticator is a public project, and you can still download a project called Pharaoh from GitHub, and you put in that seed value, hit enter, and boom, it starts to tell you what the next value is going to be. So it's not that hard to generate an additional instance of the Google Authenticator if you can find that seed value. And there's actually many more attacks against Google Authenticator. Another attack type is where, suppose you require 2FA, the website, most of the time you can go recover it. Well, all the major MFA vendors, Gmail and Microsoft and Yahoo and stuff, they realize that people lose their MFA solution, their cell phone gets lost, they lose their password or whatever. So they always have these reset options. Almost all of these reset options are not MFA. So you can actually require MFA, but then someone can go in and reset your account and tell it to send it to your alternate email account. Most of us are used to this, where you can have this recovery email or recovery phone. And if it's in a recovery email, a lot of times hackers will hack that alternate email account that you don't use a whole lot, then put your main account in recovery mode and get it that way. or the absolute worst recovery method is known as personal knowledge questions, or I call them password reset questions. But those are where, you know, you're resetting your password. Like, okay, you must tell us what your mother's maiden name is. Whoever thought your mother's maiden name was a secret, right? Like anybody can look that up. Or, you know, what's your favorite vet? If I know where you live, I could probably do a search and find the 3 closest vets to you and put in one of those vets, and it's probably gonna be your favorite vet. Or what's your favorite car? Well, your password could be a trillion different things that I would never guess. But your favorite car? There's only 100 different car models in the world at any given time. They don't change that much decade or year to year, even decade to decade. And most people's favorite car is probably not going to be an AMC Gremlin or Pacer. It's probably going to be a Mustang, a Lamborghini, you know, something, a Maserati, you know, or a Lexus or something like that. I bet I can guess most people's favorite car within 10 guesses. You know, and I'm not an Uber hacker, but you know what, Google actually did a white paper called Secret Lies in Account Recovery from the use of personal knowledge questions at Google. And what they found is that some recovery questions can be guessed on the first try 20% of the time. So 1 out of 5 questions can be guessed on the first try by a hacker. 40% of the time, people are unable to successfully recall their own recovery answers. I don't know what that means to you, except for maybe if you can't remember your answer, you should call a hacker. That's what I think. 16%, 1 out of 6 of the answers could be found in a person's social media profile. These personal knowledge questions are used to take over people's accounts all the time. Probably the most well-known attack was against Sarah Palin when she was running with John McCain against Biden and Obama. It's amazing, Biden's back in office. But there was a college kid of a Democratic representative, and he hacked Sarah Palin's Yahoo account, stole her emails, and put them on 4chan or 8chan. He got arrested and went to jail. But when they asked him how he did it, he said, oh, I put her account in account recovery mode, and it asked 3 questions. One was where she'd met her husband, which was high school. The other one was where she went to high school is Wasilla, Alaska. There's only one high school in Wasilla, Alaska. And the last question was what zip code she lived in. It turns out there's only 2 zip codes in Wasilla, Alaska. So he answered the 3 questions. He said it took him about an hour in Google to find the answers, and then he took over her account and her emails. And, you know, it's again, so what are the defenses? When you're asked to put in the answers to these things, this is not Jeopardy. They'll put in the real answers. When they go, what is your mother's maiden name? Pizza, pizza. What's your father's middle name? Pizza, pizza. What's your favorite car? Pizza, pizza. Don't put in the real answer. You should put in really a different answer. You should treat them like passwords, but don't put in the real. You're crazy if you put in the real answers to what is your high school mascot? Mine was the Kellum Knights. Somebody can look that up, but they're not going to be able to guess pizza, 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 VGAD. So when I have to fill these out, I actually put nonsense answers in them. They don't know that you're lying to them. Most of the time, you've got to put different answers in each one of these. The bad thing is I have to write them down. I have to write down what the secret question was and what my fake answer was. And I put it into a password manager. You know, it's not thrilling, but that's what I do. But you should not put the real, you know, what's your father's birthday? Is there somebody that can't go on a genealogy website and find that information? It's just crazy. Biometrics. I'm not a big fan of biometrics when they're used as single factors, which they are most of the time. They're not that accurate at all. The most biometrics are hideously inaccurate. But my biggest problem with them is that once they're stolen for life. Like I was part of, if you look at the bottom of the screen there, my password, my fingerprints, all 10 of my fingerprints were stolen by a Chinese APT attack against the United States government in June 2015. They stole the fingerprints of everybody that had ever applied for a U.S. government security clearance, which I had done through Microsoft. My wife had her fingerprints stolen, even though the only time she had her fingerprint applied for a security clearance is when she was a teenager back in the 80s working for a shipyard. But if you had applied for a government security clearance and they had your fingerprints on file, the Chinese APT got that. Obama eventually asked the current president of China, as a matter of fact, I forget how you say that, but he asked for the database back, and China gave the database back. You know, what are the odds are they didn't make a copy? Like literally anything that relies upon my fingerprint, how can they trust that it really is me? And let me say, biometrics are stolen all the time. Here's a breach from 2019 where a top 50 biometric app had 1,000 fingerprints breached. Some white hat hackers reported, hey, your website will allow anybody to download anybody's fingerprints. That company would not respond to them and did not fix the problem for weeks. Never responded to the company, to the white hat hackers that told them that. And this happens all the time. Another type of attack is these, if you've got a password, anytime you type in a password, login name and a password, you can only guess a couple of times or maybe 6 times before it locks that account out. Or for whatever reason, and every MFA implementation that requires you to put in a number, a 4-digit code or a 6-digit code or whatever, the version 1 of that software never has account lockout. I don't know why, but I've never seen MFA where you're required to put in a number that won't stop you from trying thousands of numbers. So I don't know why it is, but every implementation always is that way. This one researcher found out on Instagram, when Instagram implemented MFA, I think there was a 4-digit code, which meant if you have four digits, that would, in 9 numbers or 10 numbers, it means you can have up to like 10,000 or 9,999 guesses or whatever. But he found that he could only guess. He could guess up to 250 times by IP address. So it didn't lock it out after 6 guesses. It only locked it out after 250 guesses. And only, and the way that you could get more guesses is just to have a new IP address. So he bought a bunch of computers for like $12 on Amazon AWS and guessed away and cracked and hacked it because their account lockout was 250. I mean, nobody in the right mind would need 250. And it happens all the time. Slack. I use Slack. Slack also did the same thing. They had this password reset page that would send a code to somebody, and it turned out you could brute force that code. It never stopped you from guessing. And it happened to cPanel, which was a really popular admin console, and it happened to this UAA, and it happened to Grab Android app. I have never seen an MFA app that required a code that actually had account lockout on the number of times you could guess when it was out in the first version. They always fix it, but I don't know why they don't do account lockout. All MFA is buggy as heck. If you did, all MFA is just software at some point, and they all have bugs. If you want to freak yourself out, just put in buggy MFA code. You'll get 1 million results back. But it really happens all the time. I love this headline here. It says, after ignoring it for months, Uber finally fixes the 2-factor bypass bug after all. Like literally, this is not uncommon for when someone reports a bug with MFA that the vendors just don't fix it. The biggest bug I ever remember was in 2017 called the Rocco vulnerability. This involved public-private key cryptography, asymmetric cryptography. If you know about public-private key cryptography, the idea is that you and only you have a private key that nobody else sees. And if anybody else was able to guess your private key, they could become you. It's attached to a related public key, and that public key can be given out to anybody, and it doesn't compromise your private key. It's the whole way the whole thing works. Well, it turned out there was this vendor that made software and hardware. It made dynamic link library, DLL libraries that Windows and other products use. It made software that was put into firmware of chips. Well, when they generated RSA keys, public keys, 2048 bits or smaller, which was almost all of them at the time, turned out that they had a bug, and if someone found your public key, they could immediately generate your private key. Let me say this again. They had a bug. It was in hundreds of millions of devices. It was in YubiKeys. It was in almost every smart card back in 2017. It was in the trusted platform module chips of every enterprise Windows laptop. That if an attacker was able to see your public key, they could immediately generate your private key. And it literally overnight made hundreds of millions of devices with no protection. And these, for a long time, these devices with these flawed keys were out there. Most of them have expired now, but there's still tens to hundreds of millions of these devices out there. It's amazing. Just know on biometric attacks, I've been on at least a dozen projects to hack fingerprints and retina scans and stuff like that. I haven't done hand fingerprint geometry. The Computer Chaos Club in Germany did that one, but when you're asked to fake fingerprints, most of the time it's not hard at all. Like in every project I've ever been on, the projects are assigned to go on for 2 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that. We've never not broken in the fingerprint using the first thing we tried on the first day. I faked fingerprints with Play-Doh. I've faked fingerprints with glue. I faked fingerprints with all kinds of materials. My favorite though is one project, we had a bunch of those flat scanners, you know, that's where you kind of like, usually used for building entry, where you just put your fingerprint across it, not the swipe scanner, but where you place your finger. We found out that we could spray fingerprint spray dust, and it would raise the oil and make it so that we then could log in as that fingerprint. So we just went up to any fingerprint scanner, sprayed it with fingerprint dust, and it would log in as that fingerprint. And even worse, some of them we could just go to the fingerprint and go, just puff wet air on it, and it would activate the oils of the last fingerprint and log us in as that person. There, you know, the vendors always go, oh, you can't fake them, you can't fake it, you can't fake our fingerprints, you can't fake our facial scans. There's always some kid the next day on YouTube faking that biometric thing for like $2. Like here's where facial recognition doesn't work as intended on 42 of 110 tested smartphones. You don't have to worry, it was only Lenovo, LG, Nokia, and Samsung. You know, and then iPhones are not in that list, but iPhones, can you fake fingerprints on iPhones? Yes, yes. And face scans and all that stuff, they can all be fake. Last two things I'll talk about here, because I know I'm running out of time here, is if your secret encryption key is stored on a chip, you can actually get an electron microscope. A brand new electron microscope costs about $1 million. You can buy one on the internet for about $5,000. And if that secret key is on a chip, like the Trusted Platform Module chip is on Windows laptops, you can actually use an electron microscope with open source software. There's open source software you can download that will look in the chip, find the TPM key, and tell you how to unlock the TPM chip. You know, they literally, these electron microscopes find the secret keys looking at the molecular level. So anytime you have an encryption product, the secret key has to be stored somewhere, in memory, on disk, somewhere. An electron microscope can get it. If you can't afford $5,000 or $6,000 for an electron microscope, can you afford $8? Because for $8, you can actually get a can of a duster air. And this attack called the cold boot attack, you can look this up. I've actually seen this done in real life. Is that what they found out is that you can go up to someone's laptop that is locked, that's encrypted with like BitLocker or something, open up the memory compartment where the memory chips are, spray that area for a minute with this duster air. What it will do is make those chips very cold. It gets them nice and frosty. You can remove those memory chips, put them in another computer, and find the secret keys. It's called, you can take a look, cold boot attack. It's been done against all kinds of, it works against any encryption product where the entire secret key is stored in memory or on disk, and it's not a split key type thing. It works against Apple, works against Linux, works against Windows, and it just takes $8 of canned air, and you download open source software. So the thing I want you to remember is just MFA isn't unhackable. It doesn't prevent phishing or social engineering from being successful. MFA is good though. Everybody should use it when they can, but it's not unbreakable. If you use MFA, you just need to be aware of the types of attacks that could get around your MFA or be successful against your MFA, and so on. With that said, I know I'm running out of time here, but I'd love to take some questions from you on that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that presentation. That was pretty amazing. Let's go ahead and let's start looking at, so it says here, to avoid an MFA attack, would shortening sessions, I guess the timeout, help?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to help a little bit, but so I can hack any MFA solution at least 3 to 5 ways. I can hack most of them 10+ ways. So for, you know, you can just hack them. I mean, you can just hack them in different ways. But shortening the session key will help. But I mean, they can automate it. A lot of the attacks automate the MFA attack, so it happens in a second or two, and then they change your email address, change your password, and things like that. So, you know, you really can't make the session so short that they wouldn't be able to accomplish what they wanted to do. You know, you'd want to look at something else to try to be more protective. Like, again, I'm a big fan of FIDO2, because FIDO2 says that the device that's used, it generates a separate public-private key that then is attached to a website, and it won't work with the man-in-the-middle site. So for 90% of MFA, Google Authenticator, Windows Authenticator, RSA, a lot of products you could trick with the man-in-the-middle attack. FIDO doesn't, because it registers both sides and it won't work. It won't be registered with a man-in-the-middle site, so it just doesn't work. So I love FIDO 2, but I can hack FIDO 2 a bunch of different ways as well.
Great. What is your opinion of the Titan keys?
The ones that are FIDO 2 are good. They're good. I mean, again, and there's Titan keys and there's Google Titan keys, but they're typically like FIDO based or one-time based best. They're actually a pretty good solution. Are they unhackable? No, not by any means. But they're good. On the standard of things, I would say Titan's above average about what I would like. But it's even like the FIDO keys. There's FIDO and FIDO 2 and YubiKeys. YubiKeys and Titan keys kind of fight it out sometimes. There's lots of hacks against YubiKeys, and a lot of those attacks would have been successful against the Titan keys, except for Titan came out later. But you know for sure. And I think in the book, I do include an attack against Titan in the book. It's been patched now. But, everything gets bugs, everything can be hacked, but I like them above average.
Great. Any other question? Okay, I'll ask another question. Do you think that zero trust is good to mitigate this type of attacks, or?
Yeah, I talk about that in my book. What's interesting is I actually take the most secure MFA device known on the planet, which is a Bloomberg device. It's like this 5-factor device, and I hack it in the book. And then I say, what would it take to secure something? And I actually secure online voting from home. It's actually one of the chapters. Let's take the most difficult scenario in the world and secure it. But I'm sorry, what was your question again? I lost myself. What was that question again? I apologize.
If zero trust, like
so I finished the book with, what's the future of authentication? And it's closer to what zero trust looks like. It's kind of, and zero trust, first of all, people use it just as a catchword, kind of like when they call something quantum. People love to call things zero trust that aren't zero trust, and it's quantum, it's not quantum. But I always say zero trust is kind of like your credit card, which is you can use your credit card and it works most of the time, but then every now and then your bank, like maybe you're buying a large screen TV at Best Buy and your credit card company go, hey, is this really you? Well, zero trust is kind of that way. It uses the combination of things to do a trust rating on you. So one thing that I think will be integral to all zero trust is, are you coming from the same device that you normally come from? Are you coming from the same location that you're normally from, or same IP address? Are you doing the types of transactions? So the future of authentication is probably not MFA or passwords. It's probably going to be something what's called frictionless and zero trust. Yeah, so the future of authentication is something that looks a lot more like zero trust, which looks at the amalgam of everything that you're doing and that you are, to decide whether you're doing high risk or low risk things or behaviors or contexts. And again, Microsoft and Google are already evaluating hundreds of variables on you every time you log into their accounts and you don't know it, because they get like 1 million accounts stolen every day. Every day, Microsoft and Google have 1 million accounts stolen by hackers. So they've come up with some really sophisticated forms to try to fight it. They're not perfect, but yeah, so you asked about how I like zero trust. For the things that really are zero trust, I like a lot, but there's a lot of false stuff out there. I think everything's like, we're zero trust. I'm like, no, you're just no trust.
Cool. Guys, any other questions?
I was just gonna say, if you can show us your book, so everybody,
Yeah, please.
Yeah, certainly can't hurt if you want to look at it or buy it. But it's called Hacking Multi-Factor Authentication, and it's a good book. It's a good book. It just came out, I think, November, December of last year. But I even talk about how to pick the best MFA for you or your company. Like, what is the process you should go? Because that's a very common question. Like, what MFA should I get? There's a lot of things to go into it. Number one is what does it work with? Like some people, I like Google Authenticator. Google Authenticator doesn't work with 2% of the websites and services in this world, you know, and it's one of the biggest. So you have to start, first you have to say, what am I trying to protect? And then try to figure out, well, what MFA solutions would even protect what I'm trying to protect? Then I start to ask, well, do I want a hardware token? Do I want biometric, you know? But you got to ask a couple other bigger questions even before you get to the actual solution.
A question that always comes to you know, people have asked us in the past, between like Google Authenticator and like Microsoft Authenticator and like Authy, you know, like do you have a preference? Do you have a recommendation? You know.
Yeah, so you know, all those are all, I think, middle solutions. I hacked them all, or you know, and they've all been hacked multiple times. Authy's been hacked. You know, it's the longer you've been around, the more popular you are, the more you get hacked. And so what I say with a lot of those is, you know, as long as when someone identifies that they've been hacked and they fix it fairly quickly, you know, it's like Windows or Google browser, you know, Microsoft Edge and Google Chrome get hacked all the time, but they're pretty quick on fixing it. You want the same thing with your authentication. And Auth0 has been hacked to death, and Authy's been hacked to death, and Google Authenticator gets hacked to death. But most of the time, the Google Authenticator is a weird one at times, right? There's a whole lot of stolen, that code gets stolen man-in-the-middle attacks. And they could fix it by requiring device registration like the FIDO keys do. Matter of fact, FIDOs, I love anything that's FIDO-based, FIDO2 based, I love. And you can still hack them. But one of the things I love about FIDO2 is they're one of the few vendors that actually puts out a document going, here's the ways you can hack our products. And you know, and here's the ways you can prevent those hacks. I mean, that to me gives me confidence that that's a fairly secure solution. But they're, you know, they're all good. They're all bad at times. The ones that there's more that I don't like. Like, so if you, the ones you mentioned, I like. They're in the middle. They use open standards. They're not. There's a lot of them that roll their own crypto. Run away from those. I'm not a big fan of SMS based. I'm not a fan of biometrics, especially if it's single factor, which is pretty common. But there are some biometric. Like, I'm worried about biometrics if your fingerprints get stolen. But there are like when you do a fingerprint scan, what happens is it takes the ridges and valleys of your fingerprint and it makes every ridge and valley a point, so that your fingerprint actually gets converted to something that looks like a star constellation. And that star constellation is what gets scanned in and stored, and it's what it gets scanned against. And because your fingerprints cannot be superly accurately read, because every day you're getting micro abrasion. So most fingerprint scanners are capable of doing far more detailed scanning, but they can't do the scanning that detailed. So they actually intentionally detune them so that star constellation essentially gets to look like a lot of other people's star constellation. At my company at KnowBe4, when I first joined and I put my fingerprint in, we only had 400 or 500 employees at the time, and my fingerprint already matched somebody else's fingerprint. Well, when I looked at that person's fingerprint, it didn't look anything like my fingerprint. It's just that our star constellation, when they detuned it, just happened to match. And if you talk to anybody in the, like, that's done 100,000 people for biometrics, not only there are people that just can't use the biometrics. Like even at KnowBe4, we had 1,000 employees. There was a girl that every day her fingerprint would not match. It just wouldn't match. Like, and we don't know why. She wasn't a drummer. She didn't mess with paints and clays and sandpaper for a living. And if you talk to someone that's done really big biometric projects, there's always people that just don't work. Their retina scan doesn't work. Their hand point, you know, you have to make exceptions for them. So my thing is use a company that's been around a while. All the ones you just said have been around for a while, that try to fix the bugs, that try to do stuff. But let me say this, like the people, the big cryptocurrency people, they've been robbed so many times. A lot of my cryptocurrency friends went back to login name and password. They're like, literally, if I have a login name and password for Coinbase, And if I don't, I will never, ever get tricked to giving it out. And if I do that, I'm not going to be hacked. But their MFA solution was hacked over and over and over and over again. So a lot of the big cryptocurrency guys have like stopped using MFA. So, you know, that's kind of the problem, is that MFA is not the be all end all. You know, it's good, but you probably don't want to completely trust all your gold to an MFA solution.
Yeah, somebody's asking about the YubiKey. What's your opinion on the YubiKey?
The YubiKey,
Mhm.
again, I like them. They get hacked a lot of different ways. But if they support FIDO2, I like them. They're good, but they're hacked like anybody else. But if you tell me you've got a YubiKey, especially a newer one, because their older ones got hacked, they even had the Roku vulnerability impacted a lot of the version 1 YubiKeys. I like YubiKeys, although I don't like the single factor ones. There's a lot of YubiKeys where you just plug them in, or you plug them in and push a button. Those are horrible. That means that if you lose that YubiKey, anybody that picks it up becomes you. There's actually, and I recount this in the book, there was a Harvard study where they did YubiKeys. And they had 100 people, and they sent them some instructions of how to use the YubiKeys to log into Gmail. Something like 40 or 50% of the people used them wrong. It was like 20% of the people thought they were using it right, but weren't using it at all. Some people plugged them in upside down. Some people damaged them. Some people thought the little push button was a fingerprint scanner, and that they thought they were working the whole time, but they were not working. So they had this like hideous failure rate for a single factor YubiKey. And that told me anything harder than single factor YubiKey, you're going to have failures with people. But here's the wildest thing. At the end of this study, they actually gave all participants, they said, thank you so much, and we're going to give you the YubiKey. You get to use that YubiKey for the rest of your life or whatever. They waited 2 months, called them back. All 100 people had not used it. All 100 people decided not to use it. They didn't want to be bothered by using it because it was too hard to use. And you plugged it in and pushed a button. On top of that, something like 40% of the people gave it away. They thought it was a memory storage device, and they gave them to their friends, to their kids, or put it in like a common company storage bin, meaning whoever then picked it up, if they used it, would log in as them. Like, it's insane. So I'm a big believer on two-factor MFA. And a lot of people think that YubiKeys are always MFA. Nah, it's single factor too. And I don't like single factor.
Great. There's one question here. I think you touched on it, but if you could wrap it up with like a set of practices that you recommend, which obviously a lot of them are in the book, but if you were to choose at least 3 that everybody should consider when thinking about MFA.
Yeah, so one I just mentioned, which is try to use a reputable company that uses open standards. So FIDO2. If YubiKey tells me it uses FIDO2, I like it, and it's been around. And make sure that it's a responsive company. There are the vast majority of MFA vendors out there are fly-by-night, have almost no customers. So you want to use a bigger MFA customer that people have heard of and used. And I think it's sad if you're a new MFA vendor, I'm telling people to avoid you, and that's not a good thing. But you just, they're not proven. You don't know what their security policies are. You don't know if they're going to update. But on top of that, I'm also the biggest thing to get out of this is to educate yourself and anybody you give MFA to. Like if I give somebody Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator or LinkedIn MFA, I would, as an administrator, I go, listen, you still could be tricked out of your MFA. Like the email could send you to the wrong website and it looks like the right website. So you need to pay attention to the link you're clicking on to make sure it's a real link. If I'm giving if SMS based, if all of a sudden we're using SMS based MFA, which I again tell you shouldn't, but I would tell people, listen, if you get a code telling you to put in another code to some other SMS message, you're being tricked. Or if someone calls you on the phone claiming to be us or claiming to be Google, or Microsoft, you do not know that it really is Google and Microsoft. So my biggest recommendation, it's in every chapter. In every chapter I go, here's a solution, here's a solution. I put all the solutions. The first bullet point every time is education. Because so many people think that, oh, I got MFA, I don't need to worry, I just plug it in, or biometric, or I got a YubiKey or Titan key, I'm safe. And you're not. It just requires, it's like people's brains. It's as if we gave people passwords and went, go use your password, it's safe. No, when we give people passwords, we're like, hey, we're never going to ask you for it in email. We're never going to call and ask you for it. And there's a lot of ways you can be tricked out of it. I mean, same thing with MFAs. You just have to give a little bit of guidance. That's my number one. And then go with a refutable solution with somebody that uses open standards. That would just be in general. Although I'm doing my, on March 8th at my company, I'm doing a webinar on that topic about everything I would recommend that you should do around MFA. That's a March, actually it's not March 8th, March 10th. Brand new webinar, but it's, hey, what MFA should you choose?
Great. If you can actually put the slide again so that everybody knows where to find you and where to follow you. And thank you very much for the presentation. This has been amazing. Thank you everybody for attending. And if there are no more questions, then I guess we'll see you guys soon. And thanks again, Roger. It's been a pleasure having you.
Y'all are great.
And also, if you can, before you leave, can you put the webinar link for your presentation on March 8th? And I think people will like it as well. So.
Yeah, I actually don't have that link yet to the March 8th, but I'll try to remember to resend it when I get it. I'm just finishing up the slides this weekend, actually.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay.
Well, all right. Thank you very much. Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
Bye. Bye, everyone.